Hey everyone, if you're enjoying my RM audiobooks, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that hype, and maybe check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel even more. Your support means a lot and helps me keep these coming. Now, sit back and enjoy the story.
Chapter 1. Hestia. This disregards Volume 16 as I haven't finished reading it and occur during Volume 15. There will be no lemons. When Belle and Ryuha finally returned from their impromptu date, both Lily and Hestia were pissed that he went and in their minds flirted for a while with Ryuha. Haruheim was just pouting and Welf and Mikoto just watched in amusement. It could be said that everything that happened next was Seer's fault. Being annoyed at Belle, she decided to prank him by giving him the drink with the highest alcohol content so he would make a fool of himself. The drink was normally served in shots, but in this case she gave him a full tankard as if it was ale. "I hope you enjoy your drink." Her smile could have curdled milk with how scary it was. Belle was confused by the sudden animosity from Seer and wondered if he had now done something wrong to her. Did you put something in it?" Belle trailed off as he watched Seer walk away to serve another client. Belle nervously watched his tankard, but deciding that Seer would never poison him in Mamma Mia's bar, he just decided to get it over with and drank the entire thing as fast as he could. The rest of the Hestia familia noticed and cheered him on as he drank the entire tankard. In the end he coughed a bit, but he finished the entire thing. It was after that things got different. Belle started swaying on place and staring at nothing while laughing to himself. Hestia got worried, so she called out to him, "Belle-kun, Belle-kun, Belle-kun." Yet Belle wouldn't answer. Finally getting enough of being ignored, Hestia got up and shook Belle's shoulder lightly. "Belle, are you all right?" Belle slowly turned to her and gave her a kind smile. "With you beside me, I will always be all right," Hestia. Belle answered before making a swift movement and grabbed her hand, pulling her to him and sitting her in his lap. "You are beautiful, you know." Belle continued his attack, making the already blushing Hestia even redder. "BB Belle-kun, why you can't do this in front of everyone?" Hestia was completely flustered by Belle's sudden boldness. Belle just gently pushed a lock of hair before slowly moving his finger through her cheek, making a line to her chin before he gently grabbed her chin with his thumb and his index finger. "Then why don't you stop me, Hestia?" He almost purred at her, making her shiver as he repeated her name as if they were a couple. "You are being unfair," replied Hestia, her face completely red as Belle held her as if she was the most important thing in the world. By this point the rest of the familia had noticed Belle's actions and could only watch with their jaws on the floor as Belle flirted like a master playboy with Hestia. The maids had also noticed and Seer watched in utter distress as Belle demolished Hestia and seemed to make her fall harder in love with him. Ryuha felt twitchy and was slowly getting near the table. "Maybe I am," Belle whispered in Hestia's ear, his arm sneaking around her back and holding her closer. "Maybe I should give you." Belle slowly got closer and closer to Hestia, making her heart beat faster than a rabbit's as Belle's lips got closer and closer to her own. Haruheim had already fainted, but Lily and Seer could only watch in horror as Belle was about to kiss Hestia, yet in these trying times a certain elf could still move, hitting Belle as hard as she could with a serving plate. "Mr. Cranel, get a hold of yourself," she said almost stoically as she knocked out the boy. Chaos rendered supreme afterwards. The next day Belle woke up with a headache. Is this a hangover? Belle had never drunk enough to end up drunk or have a hangover before. At most he drank until he had a buzz, so this was a new experience for him. "I'm never drinking again." The pain was one thing, but then there was something else that worried him, the lack of memory of how he had reached his room. So gathering his courage he walked to the dining room, finding Haruheim already setting the table for breakfast. "Ah! Miss Haruheim, good morning." Belle hadn't even finished his greeting before Haruheim fainted. Completely confused now, he turned to the door when hearing it open and noticed it was his goddess Goodmore. He once again didn't even manage to finish his greeting before Hestia turned tail and ran. "Wah-ah-ah-ah-ah. I'm not ready for Belle-kun to devour me." Belle immediately turned completely red. "Wait. Goddess. What did I do?" It was at this point that Welf entered and after teasing him a bit explained what he did. Needless to say the boy was mortified with his actions and decided to thank Ryu the next time he saw her. What they both didn't know is that a certain silver-haired goddess had plans to make a certain rabbit devour her. Chapter 2. Eyes. Seer was a woman in a mission. After Belle had gotten drunk and flirted with Hestia as she wanted, no desired to be on her place. So she had weaved a web through the use of her familia with them using a few of their contacts to spread the rumor that Rabbitfoot's success was only possible due to his party members Welf Krazo and Lilyruka Arde. Welf for his armor and Lily for his money management. This had resulted in them being flooded in requests for help from other adventurers. Then she had made her female familia member organize a spa and onsen event, instantly catching the Far East girl, Mikoto, in such a fortunate event. Fortunately, it seems. She went with the Renard, Haruheim, removing another bother. Then she asked her familia to keep Hestia busy in her Jagamericun stand. Finally Ryua was out getting groceries. She had removed all bothers and distractions from having Belle attack her, so only the boy in question was missing, but as luck would have it the boy had decided to come by for lunch. Hello, Seer-san. The boy smiled with his naturally cute smile at her, making her want to. Hi, Belle-san. Are you going to eat lunch here? The boy smiled awkwardly as he scratched the back of his head. I was practicing moving my arm and got hungry, but there was no one home so I decided to eat outside. If Seer was a villain of a storybook she would have laughed maniacally. Well, there is a table at the back, you can use it. Had cost Seer about 100,000 valis to get Mamma Mia to leave that table reserved the entire day, but Seer knew it would be worth it. Seer showed Belle towards said table and quickly removed the reserved tag on top of it before Belle even noticed it. So what are you going to eat today? She asked sweetly. Well, Ermid-san said I have to eat a lot of meat, so maybe a grilled steak with cheese and a bit of orange juice. Seer quickly wrote flambe steak with cabra al vino cheese and a screwdriver. Yes, Belle was going to get drunk again and nothing would stop this. It was a series of coincidences that led her here. Tioni, and Lefia went to the Freya Familia-sponsored girls-only spa and onsen event, and Riveria, Finn and Gareth were busy organizing their next expedition. This left a certain Eyes Wallenstein with no one to spend time with. Normally this would have resulted in her going dungeon diving, but her sword undergoing maintenance with the Goibnua Familia. Seeing as it was lunch she left to go to her favorite Jagamericun stand, but found it chock full of the men of the Freya Familia, so she left before she could get into a fight. Going back to Loki Familia's mansion was a bother, so she decided to eat at the Mistress of Abundance. She didn't know she was about to have a very special day. Finally, Seer noticed Belle had started swaying in place and laughing to himself. Now to get. Hey! The Danes Leaf and the Vanna Freya are fighting each other, yelled a non-important adventurer to what seemed to be a group of his friends in a table near the front. Then an explosion was heard. Do you think they will kill each other this time before they destroy the city block? Nah, but I heard that the guild warned them that the next time they would fine the Freya Familia 5 times the cost of whatever they destroyed to pay any victims. Wouldn't such an amount put them in the red? If Seer, or rather Freya, didn't have such an enormous control of herself she would have screamed and raved like that uncultured Ishtar. Instead she walked towards the door with a smile that made even the second-class adventurer jump out of the way. She didn't even notice the sword princess passing her by. Eyes heard the explosion and the screams of rage of 2 men and immediately knew she had taken the right decision. She moved aside to let the grey-haired waitress pass as she released more and more killing intent, impressing her as not even she released that much when thinking about the dragon. She was about to search for a free table when her senses detected the presence of a rabbit. Walking towards the back she found a table that seemed to be hidden by the darkness that being this far inside the bar provided, and inside she found said rabbit. But something was wrong as his face was red and he swayed in place while sometimes laughing to himself. Belle? Eyes shook Belle's shoulder a little and immediately he turned to her Eyes-san. He smiled innocently. Pat my head please. He immediately requested. Hey? For a second Eyes went blank before happiness spread inside her. Is it really all right? She was only asking for confirmation but she was already patting the rabbit as he happily nodded. It wasn't long before a waitress appeared. Oh. Cernya is Niet going to like this Naya? Eyes tilted her head as she didn't understand what the waitress meant. Anyways, what is your order, Naya? The waitress that took her order then went away. Eyes meanwhile was thoroughly enjoying petting her rabbit, enjoying the softness that she thought she would never experience again since the Deadless incident. She then frowned as she remembered that night. At least she could pet her rabbit, but the girls that night had even gone for a hug, maybe. Belle the rabbit looked at her with hazy, innocent eyes. Can I hug you? The moment the words left her mouth, Eyes blushed a little as she felt a little embarrassed. Yes. I would love it. Eyes immediately rose the rabbit and rose him into her lap before hugging him. She felt her entire soul relax. When the waitress finally came with her order, she had even managed to feed a carrot to the rabbit. That night in the Twilight Mansion, Riveria greeted Tioni, and Lefia. Thanks for entertaining Eyes today. I don't think I have ever seen her that relaxed. This comment made the girls look at each other. Riveria-sama, Eyes-san didn't come with us. Lefia's response made Riveria blink in confusion, but she was basically glowing and smiling. What could she have possibly done? Eyes was happy for the entire week. Chapter 3. Rabbit Rampage. Belle probably was being paranoid. He probably was just overthinking things. But even so, he felt it was dangerous to get near Seer unaccompanied. He had luckily only slept in his table, or at least that was what Anya had said. Seer was very angry for some reason but calmed down after a day off. Maybe there had been a bad client? Meanwhile at Freya Familia, Alan and Hogna were forced to spar for 24 hours with otters so they would get their aggression off, and then were they punished by Freya by being tied in chair as Freya tested new outfits with her charm in full power the whole time. Needless to say, they had blue bee syndrome. Anyways, Naza had asked him if he could use his abnormal resistance skills so she could test a few potions she had made. He had wanted to disagree, but Naza had explained that if some of them worked then it would be a huge help to working off their debt, so he had at the very end decided to help her with her work. Okay, this first potion should up your stamina, so first try to do some exercise and let's use it. Then Belle nodded and practiced with his knives until he sweated a bit. That should be enough. Here Belle nervously stared at the untested potion before gathering his courage and drinking the whole vial in one gulp. Belle blinked for a bit as the potion didn't have a bad taste before his eyes widened. Naza-san. It works. Belle smiled happily, for the Chien trope as such a revolutionary potion could help adventurers reach farther into the dungeon and fight more in day without tiring. I feel as if I could run around Orario. Naza smiled and then pulled another vial. This one is not for combat. This one is supposed to help dispel bad breath. Belle winced as he remembered that many adventurers didn't have the best hygiene when it came to their mouth. Fortunately, every single member in his familia knew to brush their teeth every morning and every night. Drinking the potion, he turned to Naza. Now open your mouth. Belle felt a bit embarrassed to have his mouth smelled but toughened past it. It smells minty and I can't even sense the smell of your apple candy. Belle blushed as Naza knew of his secret of eating apple hard candy. Well, this one is special. Naza just passed the vial and didn't explain further. Belle, unknowing of the danger, just drank the vial, before he staggered. And Naza-san, what is this? Belle started swaying and his face turned red. It is potion that acts like liquor for elves. It is odorless and tasteless like water, but it still can get you drunk. Belle wanted to widen his eyes in horror, but the liquor took effect before he could. Aisha was just walking around aimlessly to rest a bit before she had another job for Hermes before she heard a scream that then got muffled. Her eyes widening, she rushed to the source to find my Ache Familia store with a wet sucking sound resounding from within. Fearing the worst, she entered and found a scene that she didn't expect. Belle Cranel was kissing Naza so hard she made her pass out. Hearing her presence, he gently sat Naza down before he turned to her. Aisha just had to take one look at his hazy eyes to understand what was going on. The rabbit instead walked to her. "Oh? You're approaching me? Instead of running away, you're coming right to me?" Aisha already knew the rabbit was drunk, but if he thought he could make a courtesan like her pass out with a kiss, he had another thing coming. "I can't kiss you if I don't get closer." Belle's mind was completely blank at this point. "Oh ho, then come as close as you like." Asfi was looking around for Aisha as Hermes had asked for them to deliver a package when she suddenly saw a white blur run out of the blue pharmacy. Wondering what had happened, she walked inside and gasped at seeing both an unconscious Naza and a half-conscious Aisha Antianira. Stop, be Belle Cranel." With such words, Aisha passed out. Running outside, she went in the direction the white blur went, only to find a passed-out Cassandra and Ermid being held by Daphne. "Oi! Wake up! Loro-san," Daphne responded to Asfi's call by turning to her. "Perseus, what happened?" It was Belle Cranel. He suddenly came and kissed Cassandra and then the Dea saint until they fainted. Then ran off in direction to Hearth Mansion. Asfi ran in that direction and followed the trace of the rabbit, but only found the unconscious bodies of Hestia, Lilyruka Arde and Haruheim Sanjano, with Hestia pointing her in the direction of the Mistress of Abundance, where she once more found the unconscious bodies of Ryuo Lion, Anya Frummel, and Chloe Rollo. Luckily it seemed that the rabbit only attacked those who had showed attraction to him, and that Cyr, the other waitress, was out doing errands. Running in the direction that Mia Grand pointed her, she found in a tool unconscious and an already losing eyes Wallenstein, who was already nearing unconsciousness. Taking the chance, she quickly hit the white-haired boy in the back of the head and knocked him out right after he finished of the Sword Princess. After this event, known as the Rabbit Rampage, was finished, many girls couldn't look at Belle in the eye, and Belle locked himself in his room for 2 days. Finally, Cyr, who found out later about the happenings, just stewed in jealousy and tripled Alan and Hogna's punishment. Chapter 4 Leffy Ya Part 1. Leffy Ya couldn't be angrier. That human had stolen Ai's first kiss. And not only that. About 5 other girls' first too. But in a twist that she hadn't expected, Ai seemed to have enjoyed it, if her moments where she touched her lips and then smiled like an innocent girl were anything to say about it. So she had grown tired of the human and decided to give him a piece of her mind. Cyr's aura was becoming darker and darker these days, especially when she saw the unusually cheery Chloe and Anya. Ryuo had already long since ran away and was almost always on the opposite side of the bar or on errands far away from the absolutely pissed girl. As for Cyr, she couldn't believe that just when she was doing errands the rabbit had gone and kissed almost every girl in the Mistress of Abundance, leaving her, the one who had led him there in the first place, without even a peck in the cheek. But she was smart and patient enough to set a trap for her rabbit, and soon she would put it to effect. It had been a week after the rabbit rampage that Belle received an invitation by Cyr to go see the kids in orphanage. Belle, being Belle, innocently accepted despite his previous suspicions in the girl. Hestia had of course refused at first, but seeing Belle's pleading eyes, she at the end could do no more than step aside. As such, it had been during a nice morning that he bathed, washed his teeth and then ran to meet up with Cyr near Deadless Street. "Oh, good morning, Cyr-san." Cyr had dressed simply for this, but it fit her like a glove. "Belle-san." "Good morning." Belle had also dressed in his simple casual clothes. As they walked to the orphanage, a good amiable atmosphere settled in, and the dark aura that Cyr had for the last 2 weeks finally disappeared. As they walked through the streets, the effects of Rabbitfoot's most recent actions could still be seen, as many men gave respectful looks at the rabbit and women maintained their distance, except the Amazonas. Those just gave him taunting looks. This wasn't due to a great feat of strength and skill made by the adventurer, neither was because he suddenly fought another level 7 black rhino. Oh no, this was because of the now famous rabbit rampage. Rumors had spread, and now he was known for having knocked out many women with kisses, including the Sword Princess and the Antianira. Emphasis on the It was like this that they reached the orphanage. It is Belle-san. Lefia had searched through the entirety of Orario and now she finally had lead on the rabbit's location. Running in direction of certain orphanage she noticed a toad-like Amazonas say she was more beautiful than Freya in front of the Vanna Freya. Needless to say it was not going to end well. So far the day had been a relaxing day for Belle. He should have known better. Nay, Uni-san. When are you going to test the beer like you promised? At Fina's question Belle froze and broke up in cold sweat. Behind him a blank-eyed seer smiled. Oh. Yeah, Sironi-san said that Belle-san promised that he would test the beer we made. Seer Wy? Belle could already feel despair filling him. I don't know what you mean Belle-san, you promised remember? And you wouldn't lie to Lie and the others right? Tear came to Belle's rubelite eyes as he saw the kids ask Maria to fill a tankard for Belle. Yet Belle hadn't given up, he had his abnormal resistance and that made it harder for him to get drunk, so just a cup wouldn't do anything, right? I feel like we should thank Seer-san for getting Neza-san to help in making this beer capable of making a dwarf with abnormal resistance drunk. At Maria's words Belle just internally gave up and hoped that Maria would stop him from doing anything too bad. When Maria returned, Seer watched in excitement as Belle drank the entire thing and finally started swaying when. Hey! The Vanna Freya is fighting the Androctonus. Don't worry, there's guild member nearby so the Freya Familia will be penalized again? This was enough for Seer to be covered in a miasma dark enough to block her from view as she walked away. It was at this moment that Lefia saw Belle. Belle Cranel. I challenge you! Yelled Lefia the moment she saw Belle. Belle blinked, then he turned. I accept Fina, my dear sister. Strange? So. What shall the challenge be? This Argonaut shall win. Lefia blinked, not understanding what was wrong with Belle, but she shrugged it off. Now that she thought about it, that was a good question, but seeing how weird he looked, maybe. If you manage to block all of my magic, I will. Lefia thought for a second what to give in exchange. A date with Ai-san? Am I willing to risk it? Her thoughts muddled, but her mouth continued. A date with I. HOH? Has this wonderful me caught your attention? But seeing as we are not blood related, I shall accept. Haha. I shall put this on my hero journal. Belle was still yelling things without sense. Lefia snapped. Proud warrior, snipers of the forest. Take up your bows before the advancing plunderers. Answer the call of your brethren and ready your arrows. Tinge them with flame, the lamplight of the forest. Release them, the fire arrows of the fairies. Falling like rain, burn away the savages. Fusillade fall Arika. A wide area attack of flames came and rushed towards Belle, who firebolt just shot it with an equally powerful quick cast spell that was covered in white. In fact, now that Lefia noticed he was being constantly covered in white motes. That's cheating! Yelled Lefia. Not cheating. Just using my head, my dear sister. I don't know why I suddenly know magic and have strange abilities, but I will always use everything at my disposal to win. The children of the orphanage just watched in awe as Belle, although acting strange like any adult that drinks beer, fought off a loud and strange girl with magic just as powerful. Then the girl shot more and more spells and Belle just shot them off with the same one time and time again. Both Lefia and Belle were panting, their use of mind and in Belle's case the Argonaut skill tiring them both. I didn't know you had so many spells, dear sister. As expected, even though you're a half-elf, your power is nothing to sneeze at. Belle is panting and he now didn't have much mind left, but it was impossible. Fina had more spells, right? Right. Who the heck is a half-elf? Anyways, I still have one more spell. Belle internally whimpered. Unleashed streak of light, bough limbs of the holy tree. You are an expert of the bow. Shoot, sniper of the fairies. Penetrate, arrow of absolute accuracy. Arc's ray. Different from the previous magic, this spell threw a single beam of light that flew towards Belle. This made Belle smirk as he moved to the side and let the spell pass him by. Haha! I've won! But Leffy Ya smirked and replied not yet. The spell had turned and now was chasing Belkya a. Bell manly scream made the orphans deadpan, yet. Bell maneuvered and dodged with extreme finesse. How is he dodging it? Leffy Ya was confused as a minute had passed and her mind was nearing its end, but Bell still was dodging the spell. Let me explain. A fancily dressed muscly blonde man with a checkered hat appeared. His moves are not random. He is dodging and escaping while thinking of how to escape. The next 3 moves. Truly a skill that would only be obtained by running away all the time. Ah! Leffy Ya clapped at the explanation before her mind finally drained completely and she feigned I wasn't able to ask who that man was. And with that she fainted. Bell, worried about Leffy Ya, went to help her as the spell disappeared. Fina. A while later Leffy Ya awoke in her bedroom, and she immediately was filled with happiness as she saw a certain blonde girl sleeping in a chair next to her. Why am I here though? Then her brain finally rebooted. Loki looked at her with surprise. 5 whole minutes, not bad, you owe me a beer, Gareth. It was then that Leffy Ya noticed that her whole familia was there, some even watching from the edge of the door. I will never forgive you, Bell Cranel. The worst part was that her elven pride wouldn't even let her back down from that date. Chapter 5. Loki. Alan didn't know how the rabbit could ignore Freya so easily. Not even the women or men who appreciated the male figure could ignore her charm. He pondered this question inside his head as he glared at the boy. That question had been rounding his head until he was sick, that is until the blacksmith spoke up while teasing the boy inside the bar. You're way too innocent, Bell. At this rate you won't notice a woman coming onto you as was natural. The sputtered and blushed like a kid. But Alan was satisfied, he finally had an answer to his second biggest question and a plan to deal with it. His biggest question was what made that boy so special. 3 days later Alan initiated his plan to both make the rabbit less innocent and humiliate Loki familia. Why just lock the boy in a sauna with alcohol and Loki, and you get the perfect combination to make the rabbit go wild, especially considering he had laced the alcohol with stamina potion. I'm sorry. Bell yelled while in a dogza. He had been chased the entire day by the Vanna Freya and then he was thrown in here with Loki who was relaxing in the sauna. Your itty bitty's kid ain't cha? Loki said while calmly sitting while drinking sake. Don't cha worry, this ain't your fault. Even if it's not my fault, I almost saw you naked. The heat was getting to Bell as he was panting. He was both exhausted and he was fully clothed while in a sauna. You should worry about yourself first. Take off your clothes, replied Loki while getting a teasing smile. Or do you want me to do it myself? Ah. Don't worry, even if he loc, that door costs about 3 million. Valis. Bell immediately jumped away from the door. I recognize this place, we're in the Wild Dragon, a high class hotel. Loki slightly opened her eyes showing her glare. And I won't like it if you break something and get us in trouble. Bell took off his clothes in the end. This led to him being seated with his back to Loki. Loki just laughed at the innocent boy. What? You think I'm ugly or something? You're very beautiful, Loki-sama. So I don't dare looking at you. Loki blushed a little but shrugged off the compliments. So, is it through compliments like this that you got my Azu's attention, or was it through those kisses I heard you can give? Bell blushed from head to toe and turned. Please don't say something like that, Loki-sama. He yelled only to blush the moment he saw Loki's slender body. Ha! Finally got ya ta look, ain't ya? Loki drank another cup of the sake. Why the heck am I the only one drinking here? Take some too. Bell flinched and tried to refuse the drink even if he was very thirsty. Loki-sama, I don't think that's. Bell couldn't finish as he had the drinking cup shoved in his mouth. Come on, just a bit won't hurt anybody. What Bell didn't know was that Loki wanted to see this so-called predator mode the rabbit entered whenever he drank, of course being who she was she could resist his charm easily. Big mistake. One drink, became 2 and then 3 and then they lost count. Before long Belle was swaying while laughing at nothing and Loki was crying her lack of female charms. It was then that predator mode was activated. Belle smirked and hugged Loki. Loki, don't say that you're plenty charming, you know? Loki blushed in her intoxicated state, especially when Belle performed a picture-perfect kabedon. Why don't I show you? They didn't even notice Alan unlocking the door. Hestia was extremely worried. Belle hadn't been seen since the morning and the only clue they had was that he was being chased by the Vanafreya. She had even gone as far as asking Wallen what's it for help. Did you find anything? Haruheim, Lily, Ice, and Ryuu and her reunited at the Twilight Mansion. No, no one has, ha 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 ha. Haruheim was about to answer when a pair of obnoxious laughs were heard, making them turn to the sound only for all of their jaws to hit the floor. Belle was dressed in a dress and was being held in a princess carry by a suit-dressed Loki. The worst part was that they were both rocking it. We're finally home, darling. Belle exclaimed while hugging Loki. Don't worry honey, we will consummate our marriage here, replied Loki. All the girls turned to stone. Ah! Isn't that Hestia? Spoke Belle. Oh right. My darling wants me to call you Chibi. Hestia almost collapsed. I'm leaving Hestia Familia to marry my darling. Hestia collapsed. Lily won't be my supporter anymore. Lily collapsed and I can't see Haruheim anymore. Haruheim fainted, but maybe me and Loki's children will play with you. I want 3 so at Azu can be at least one's godmother. Eyes collapsed. All this ruckus made the rest of Loki Familia come. What's going on? Asked Riveria while checking on Eyes. I am getting married while you still are a virgin, grandma. Riveria stilled and was about to beat the crap out of Loki until Belle spoke up. It's probably because she doesn't even try. She's probably busy with the Familia and her adoptive daughter. But I wonder if there are other 99-year-old elves out there? Every word stabbed Riveria like a sword and then she collapsed. Then there's Gareth, who's the world's oldest dwarf bachelor. Gareth had great defenses, so he just gripped his heart. But who cares, we want to enter our love nest and produce our 6 children. The Loki Familia just stared in confusion as Belle and Loki walked towards the mansion with the intention of making children, only for a certain elf to quickly knock out Belle and tie up Loki, before leaving with him and the collapsed Familia. The next day a few things happened. Belle couldn't get out of his room due to embarrassment and was punished by Hestia by having him spoil her for as long as he didn't get out. Loki couldn't look at Belle's lips or hands without blushing, and Alan wasn't seen for a week. Many have tried to get the truth of what happened that day out of Loki, as Belle didn't remember, but Loki just replied that the boy was still a virgin and that he would make a woman very happy in the future. Side note, Riveria for the first time in decades looked for a boyfriend only to fail miserably. Belle got 600 points in defense after his next training with Eyes, and Gareth drank his sorrows away. Finn just slept through all this. Chapter 6. Marie and Ray. Belle couldn't handle the fact that he dressed as a girl, so he ran away after 3 days of locking himself up and having to hug Hestia for hours on end, although it helped him feel better. So he went to the dungeon and decided to hide with the Xenos for a bit. Going down into the 20th floor on his own was relaxing in a way he couldn't explain. It had been a while since he last done this, since he had met Lily in fact. While making sure no one followed him, it seemed he was in luck, as when he went into the same area he had met the Xenos for the first time they were there, he even saw Lyd was laughing at Gro for something. Lyd-san. Lyd jumped when he heard Belle's voice. Belluki. What are you doing down here? The lizardman was very happy to see him. I'm kinda running away from something embarrassing I did. Belle blushed a little and scratched the back of his neck. So I decided to stay with you guys for a while, a week at most. Belle mostly wanted the people in the surface to forget about him in a dress. Lyd and Gro looked at each other and shrugged. It's okay, but you will have to work out a way to cover your face when we travel. They didn't want a repeat of the god Hermes coming for them to repair the little hero's reputation. Ah! Don't worry, I bought a cloak similar to Fel's-san from a friend of his, and had hair dye and a mask recommended from Ryu. I just didn't put them on yet, the boy pointed at his backpack. The two monsters just nodded and welcomed Belle into the village. By the way, do you want to see Ween? Belle smiled and agreed. For the next 3 days, Belle stayed with the Xenos, passing the time with Ween, helping Lyd and the others fight monsters. He learned where to collect food in the dungeon from Ray and played games with Let and Alls. Whenever they moved to another village, Belle put on his disguise, making him a black-haired, red-eyed, masked and cloaked adventurer. He even fought with a sword that the Xenos had instead of the Hestia knife. Belle felt relaxed and happy. Then Astrias came. "Are you here for another battle, Belle?" asked the black rhinos. "As much as I want to say yes, I am not ready. I am still too weak to be a worthy opponent, but we can spar if you want." Belle smiled at his rival. Spar. Astrias wasn't familiar with the word. To battle for practice and fun, no killing, nor crippling blows, you just stop before doing so to show that you won. Belle explained it is a way to get stronger for us humans. Astrias remembered something similar, from before he became what he is now, when he fought a great warrior that was leagues above him, yet never killed, nor crippled him it. Most he had given him some cuts, but they weren't even that deep. "Good, raise your weapon, Belle." And so they went fighting each other. They happily punched and kicked each other, and while Belle lost a lot, he always stood up and fought Astrias again, sometimes taking an opening in his fighting style and surprising Astrias with hitting hard and fast the few times they appeared. Astrias took that as challenge and did his best to fight Belle without getting hit. By the end of the day the two warriors were tired but happy. That's 340 to 5, Belle what? No way, that was 339 to 6. The two rivals bickered and had fun like old friends. After a while Astrias asked Belle about other things on the surface, eventually gaining an interest in the heroic tales that Belle held so close to his heart. This gained the other Xenos' attention, and they had gathered for Belle's story time as he told them tales of heroism and effort, of monsters and heroes. It was during this that Belle had a revelation and a laugh. The Xenos asked him why he laughed, and he just told them the Argonaut's tale, his grandfather's version at least. The one and only where Argonaut became blind and promised to the Minotaur to be rivals in the next life. The Xenos couldn't believe the coincidence, and Astrias laughed at the funny possibility. It was finally his last day with the Xenos, and they were on a hidden village in the 26th floor as the Xenos prepared a farewell party for Belle and Astrias, as they both were about to leave once more to get stronger. They had gone to that specific village for a reason though. Marie. Belle. It was one of the only 2 hidden villages that Marie had access to. With laughs and happiness Belle thanked the mermaid that saved his life twice and talked and played with her. Then it happened. "Gros-san, what is that fruit you have been eating this whole time?" Belle was curious about the strange grape-like fruit that Gros had been eating. Gros chuckled and handed him one. "Try it and you will know." Belle trusted Gros like any of his friends and just popped the fruit and ate it. Big mistake. Belle immediately grimaced as the fruit he had bit and swallowed had a taste he knew well. How could he not? It was a substance that created trouble around him like a monster. It was alcohol. And a very strong one. Belle tried to hold on, he really did, but it didn't take long before he was swaying and laughing at nothing in the air. "Pfft, I didn't take you for a lightweight, Belloki." Lyd had noticed Belle's state and couldn't help but laugh at the boy. If only things could have ended like that. Belle was really near the water, so he could easily talk to Marie, so it was no wonder that she came and tried to talk to the drunk Belle. "Belle? Are you okay?" Belle seemingly snapped out of it and smiled at her. "I am now, Marie." Marie smiled and was about to go away to talk with Laura, who was with Ween, before Belle picked her up from the water. "Belle, you have really cute eyes, you know." Belle smiled at her and she smiled at the praise. "Thank you. Can I watch them closer?" Belle asked while looking at her eyes. "Yes," replied the unknowing Marie. Belle took the opportunity and gave her a kiss that she would never forget, even if she fainted from pleasure afterwards. Lyd and Gro had their jaws on the floor and luckily Laura had covered Ween eyes. Belle then laid Marie on his lap and stroked her hair with a smile. You really are cute, aren't you? Belle then noticed Astrius, rival of mine. Fight me. Belle gently settled Marie down and then ran at Astrius, who just grinned and prepared his own fists, seeing Belle come at him unarmed. The following battle would be the most fun Astrius had in a while, because Belle, in his drunken state, didn't hold back anything and moved with more speed and flexibility than normal. This would go on for a while until Astrius tripped on a puddle of water and Belle shoved a handful of the fruits inside the Minotaur's mouth, punching his throat to make him swallow. After that Belle fought the Minotaur until he passed out from the alcohol in his system. Belle raised his right fist in victory and looked directly at Ray and smiled. Ray, noticing Belle's stare, tried to stop him. Belle-san, you are not in your right mind. Ray backed up as Belle got closer. If it is so wrong, then why does it feel so good? Belle had backed Ray against a wall and used the ultimate technique. He hugged the siren and then whispered in her ear, I'm going to make you sing tonight. Laura ran away with Ween. The next day many adventurers could have sworn that they heard a loud I'm sorry all the way in the 20th to 30th floor. Astrius left to the deep floors once more, and sometimes could be seen eating the special fruit to develop a bigger resistance to the stuff. Ray and Marie were very happy for a long while, even though Ray would sometimes get flustered when one of the Xenos reminded her of that night and the moans she released that night. Belle just cried a bit and then released his frustration about the intoxicating substance on a poor Goliath. Ray moved like a feather as she walked. Who knew Belle was so good at relaxing another's body? Oh, make one. Alan's punishment. Alan stared with empty eyes at the space. His face was so pitiful that even Helene felt pity for him. What had happened to him? Well, he had to help craft 100 pouches of morbol every day for a week without leaving the crafting area. Even when he slept and ate he had to remain there. Alan had finally seen hell. Oh, make 2. Status update. I understand you had to leave, but please, at least leave more than a letter saying that you had to leave. We were very worried, Belkun Hestia scolded him. Belle just gave an awkward laugh and took off his shirt for the status update. Hestia just huffed and sat down on his butt before starting the update. Hestia finished and very quietly passed the status into a paper. Belkun. What the hell did you do? Bell Cranal. Level 5. Strength, SS 1400 I0 Agility, SS 1400 I0 Dexterity, SS 1400 I0 Defense, SS 1400 I0 Magic, SS 1400 I0 Magic. Firebolt. Quick Strike Magic. Skills. Lyris Freeze. Rapid Growth. Continued Desire results in continued growth. Stronger Desire results in stronger growth. Argonaut. Charge and Active Action. Ox Slayer. Increased power against bull-type enemies. Princess Kiss. Kisses from girls give extreme regeneration. Development abilities. Lucky. Abnormal Resistance F. Escape H. Charm I. Chapter 7, Leffy Ya Part 2. The executives of the Loki Familia were flabbergasted. 2 months and a few days and Rabbitfoot leveled up again, he was now a level 5. Adventurers all around Orario were speechless at the fact that the boy had once again subverted expectation and had managed to fly past another level like it was nothing. The most amazing part was that no one knew how he had leveled up this time. So far the rabbit had advanced due pretty amazing facts, killing a minotaur under-leveled, defeating a level 3, and fighting a level 7 monster on his own. The question then lingered, what the hell had the rabbit done? Then the official guild publication went out and said, spent 7 days in the dungeon with just basic gear and the last 4 fighting the Black Rhino over and over again. The kid had even missed the goddess festival completely. Obviously people were incredulous. How had the kid survived for 4 days against that irregular? Some said however that Bell Cranel hadn't come uninjured, after all he was currently always using a mask and cloak along with his Goliath muffler. Common belief said that he had obtained a hideous scar during his time in the dungeon. Some said that it went bad enough that his familia didn't let him eat in public. Bell Cranel. Really, just what are you? Finn just couldn't figure out the boy. Indeed, at the rate he is going he will reach level 7 in the next 6 months, replied Riveria. That would destroy his own familia, you know? There is no way he alone can get the necessary tax money, Gareth commented. Meanwhile another member of the Loki familia was panicking, but it was for another reason entirely. Luffy Ya still hadn't gone in the date she had promised Bell Cranel, and her elven pride was screaming at her to go on and do it already. All right. Bell Cranel. I shall make you forget about Ice-san. With a new plan in mind she quickly ran out of her room and searched for her targets. She ended up finding them outside training with each other. Tioni-san, Tiona-san. Luffy Ya called out their attention, taking the out of their spar. Ah! Luffy Ya, what's wrong? Tioni asked the moment she saw her face. Did something happen? Tiona too was worried about whatever had Luffy Ya make such a face of determination. Teach me how to seduce men. At. Meanwhile Bell was quickly feeling suffocated. Hestia had entered in a panic since the moment his only choice of a development ability appeared. Hestia normally would have just decided to not let that ability appear, but she had been so shocked by his new skill, which she had believed to be a self-heal ability, that she had written the development skill on his back without noticing. The effect of the development ability was clear since the moment Haruhime fainted at the sight of him. Lily was completely red at the face and Mikoto narrowed her eyes at him. Hestia and Welf were the only ones unaffected. At the end the same answer came from all of them. Bell suddenly looks more handsome, and it seemed that the effect was worse the more powerful the previous feelings for him were, not that he knew, so the familia had quickly resorted to hiding Bell's body completely in public. They had only failed once, and Ryu had quickly ran away from the Mistress of Abundance while Anya had blushed completely and almost tripped trying to look at him. Unbeknownst to him, Lily had noticed Seer's lack of reaction and had taken it as the girl actually having zero interest on the boy, or the girl not being a girl in the first place. Since then Lily made sure to never let him take off his clothes in public. But the clothes were thick and barely breathable, so Bell almost always felt dizzy after fighting in the dungeon. The unfortunate part was that development abilities activated the moment the requirements for activation were reached and only turned off whenever the requirements were not reached. For charm the only requirement was to see his skin, which made it impossible to deactivate as long as he wasn't completely covered. Ha! Maybe I could go to a remote place. Bell really wanted to take off his cloak, mask, and muffler and just breathe a little. Bell Cranel. Bell flinched and looked at the elf that had a strange amount of hostility to him. Oh, our date will be next Saturday, so be prepared, okay? Then the girl ran away. Bell was confused. Lily was even more confused. Pfft. Welf and Mikoto were trying not to laugh. Luffy Ya for the next few days had her face red most of the time as the Amazoness taught her some of the tricks to seduce men they had heard from others in their familia. Tioni turned out to be the most useless and ended up beside her, learning from Tiona the things other girls had taught her. Hat, Captain will not be able to resist me after this. Tioni was very happy for the lessons. Awawa of Luffy Ya was steaming. It was on this scene that Ace Wallenstein, the Sword Princess, entered the room and immediately stopped and stared at the situation she entered. Tilting her head she asked, "What's going on?" "Luffy Ya is going on a date," exclaimed Tiona, even when Luffy Ya tried and failed to stop her. Eyes tilted her head before turning to Luffy Ya. "Congratulations, who are they?" Tiona was about to reply until she noticed she didn't know and turned to Luffy Ya. "Now that I think about it, she didn't tell us." Tioni too stopped and stared at Leffy Hoh. Now that I think about it, she didn't tell us who was her date. Leffy was quickly being overwhelmed by the questions of the two Amazonas and ended up yelling his name, Belle Cranel. I am going on a date with Belle Cranel. Fueh. The day of the date had come and Leffy was ready to make the boy forget about Ice-san. She had even dressed in human clothes instead of elf ones to make a bigger impact. Sorry did I made you wait. The cloaked boy was surprised by her appearance and you could hear it in his voice. I just came a few minutes ago. It was as awkward of a date as you could imagine. Not far from there Tioni and Eyes were watching from a hidden corner. Eyes' pout was already present though. Aha! They look so cute together. Well, they would if Rabbitfoot would take off his hood. I wonder why Argonaut-kun won't take off his hood. Not far away from them Lily, Haruheim, and a disguised elf were watching with varying levels of jealousy. Belle-sama, you womanizer. Belle-sama. If you go too far I will knock you out, Cranel-san. It seemed that the first thing they would do was shopping, so the girls followed behind them. Gritting their teeth whenever Belle complimented Leffy for anything she put on, but still giving advice on what actually would look better. Throughout the entire thing, Leffy actually had fun with Belle and spent her time with him happily. She even blushed whenever he flattered her without ulterior intentions, like when he bought her that flower hair decoration. Now they were going to get a meal in a restaurant together. Meanwhile the girls stared with even more jealousy at the pair, Tioni wishing that Finn did all this with her, Tiona for reasons even she didn't know, and Eyes, Lily, and a certain elf. Because they desired to be in Leffy's place even if the elf mentally tried to deny it. As for Haruheim, she had decided to leave a while ago when they had met with Mikoto, Chigusa, and Uka, who they found by coincidence having a rest. By the way, Belle-san, a while into the date Leffy had started calling him by his name. Why are you so covered? Belle flinched and stared at Leffy for a moment before deciding to tell her the truth. I got the skill charm when I leveled up. Leffy gasped at the info. Was he planning to charm Ice-san? So I covered myself up so the skill wouldn't grow and so that it wouldn't affect anyone. Leffy relaxed and mentally berated herself for her thought. She may not like Belle Cranel, but she knew that at the very least her rival will not cheat in their race to Ice-san. Humph, as if such a skill would affect me. You can take off your mask at the very least, Leffy reassured Belle. You would have to take it off to eat anyways. She blushed and looked to the side. It's not like I want to reassure you or anything though. Belle was surprised at Leffy and her trust in him, so he decided to give her the benefit of the doubt, taking off his muffler and mask but not the hood. He stared directly at Leffy. Leffy blushed a bit before controlling herself. SCN nothing happened. With Lily and the others, Lily had almost jumped out of their hiding spot to try and stop Belle, only for the curious Tioni, and Eyes, who had found them a few minutes earlier, to stop her. Unfortunately, many of the restaurants were full, so they entered a strange one that was called Couple Blessing. Apparently, it was managed by the Aphrodite Familia and they would give special couple service. Belle noticed Leffy looking at the parfait that said for couples only. With a hungry look decided to buy it for her. The rest of the meal was spent in calm as they ate and talked about their respective familia members, but there was something wrong. The more they drank, the redder their faces got, and it wasn't long before the restaurant received a complaint about the fact that the alcohol for table 9 hadn't come. Belle and Leffy were drunk. I can't help but feel useless sometimes. Everyone in the Loki Familia is so competent and powerful, that it feels that sometimes they just fabricate opportunities for me to help. Belle just softly held her as she opened up about her insecurities and fears. He turned to a waitress and told her to bring the parfait. Leffy in her drunken state didn't even question the appearance of her desired treat and even enjoyed it as Belle fed it to her. From any point of view they looked like a loving couple. Something that for some reason pissed off a certain elf, Eyes, Lily, and Tiona. Tioni had left in search of Finn due to pure envy at what she was seeing. At the end the parfait was done and Leffy fell asleep. The drunken Belle just paid the bill and piggyback carried her to a nearby park, where he found a tree that had good shade. An even greater wind making it a great spot for napping. Bell just looked fondly at the girl who he had given a lap pillow as he hummed a song he didn't know minutes ago. I wonder why this feels so natural, so familiar. With that, Belle fell asleep while softly patting her head. Meanwhile the girls were looking at the scene with eyes utterly devoid of life. After a bit they decided to leave before they did something rash. It wasn't until sunset that both of them woke up once more, red-faced but this time for different reasons. The both of them separated, strangely missing the other's touch. What happened? Leffy Ya's cheeks were a cherry red. They confused the table with another, and served us alcohol. I noticed in time and didn't get too drunk, but you were completely drunk, so I brought you here to sleep it off. Belle smiled awkwardly and didn't mention Leffy Ya crying and complaining until he cheered her up. Leffy Ya's blush became even deeper and she looked down. Sorry, this entire time you have been just catering to me instead of having a proper date. Don't worry, Belle was smiling at her. You also helped me relax a lot just by not being affected by my skill. You gave me hope that one day I will not have to fear this ability. I didn't do it for you, Baka. Leffy Ya looked at the side. I just didn't like the pathetic look on my rival's face. Belle felt so happy that he hugged Leffy Ya despite her protests, although he noticed she didn't fight him off. I think I will accept this skill, commented Belle. I will face it head on and I will not let it control. At this Leffy Ya smiled and with her frame covered by the last shards of sunlight replied, I'm glad. Belle accompanied Leffy Ya to the Twilight Mansion, the entire travel feeling familiar and happy, filled with jokes and laughs, and after giving his farewells walked home with a new determination. The days afterwards became a bit strange for the two as eyes pouted a lot in Leffy Ya's presence, and with Tiona dragging Leffy Ya to physically train her made her very angry at Belle. Belle meanwhile had to face against a pouting Lily, Hestia, Haruheim, and Ryu, but things changed when his goddess updated his status a week later. Belle Cranial. Level 5. Strength, I0 I24 Agility, I0 I60 Dexterity, I0 I55 Defense, I0 I30 Magic, I0 I40. Magic. Firebolt. Quick Strike Magic. Skills. Lyris Freeze. Rapid Growth. Continued Desire results in continued growth. Stronger Desire results in stronger growth. Argonaut. Charge and Active Action. Ox Slayer. Increased power against bull-type enemies. Princess Kiss. Kisses from girls give extreme regeneration. Development abilities. Luck G. Abnormal Resistance G. Escape H. Hero's Charm I. Instead of creating sexual attraction, this skill brings a sense of safety for those under protection. Hestia was elated. I was about to have Freya teach you how to deal with that charm ability, but I guess I will have to tell her that you solved the problem on your own. Belle couldn't keep the smile off his face as he walked without having to completely cover himself.